What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Pokemon Masters. If you haven't figured it out already, we're talking about your boy Guzma. Uh, I like this character a lot. I think he's really strong. We're just gonna go through his abilities and stuff first before we get too in depth about him, because I do think there's certain things about him that are better than others. So his first ability, Pin Missile, pretty weak, just 16 power. But it attacks the target 2 to 5 times in a row, so it's just like a Sceptile Bullet Seed, or just like Pin Missile in the video games, you know. It can hit however many times. If it hits 5 times, obviously it's going to do a whole lot more damage than it does 2. His other attacking move is First Impression. So it's super powerful. It's a 200 base power move. I think that's stronger than Red's Blast Burn, I think. And then the move fails if the sync pair has used any moves since entering battle. Now, that says if this sync pair has used any moves. So there are some ways to get around it if other sync pairs use stuff. So you can buff Guzma and use this, but Guzma can't buff himself, right? Does that make sense? I think that makes sense. All right, and that's pretty simple. You have to do that. So, but this also means you can only use this move one time in single player. So you gotta make sure Guzma doesn't do anything, and you buff him up really high, and then you can do whatever you want, right? And we'll talk about what I think the best team is for him in a minute to accomplish that. His one ability here is Dire Hit Plus, so it sharply raises his critical hit rate, only his. It is not a Dire Hit All, so it will not help anybody else. And then his other skill is Beat Him Down, which is uses a maximum of 3 slots of his move gauge, and then based on the amount that he took, it will raise his attack and defense by up to 4 ranks. So this becomes kind of redundant if you have like a lot of move recovery, because obviously you can't get to +8. You get capped at +6. So also if your gauge is full, you can just double tap it right in a row and it'll max you out. You know what? We'll talk about it when we get to the team. So his passive skills, he's got Danger Dodge 2, which sharply raises his evasiveness when his HP drops to half or below for the first time, which is pretty good. And I don't have a lucky skill on him yet, but if you're gonna put a lucky skill on him, the obvious winner is Critical Strike 2. You 100% want Critical Strike 2 for him, so we'll get into that later too. Let's talk teams. You want to maximize Guzma? This is your setup right here. These are your boys for this team, okay? So Hilbert is awesome because what Hilbert does is he lets you maximize an attack with 2 uses. So most people that have AoE buffs do not get to maximize everybody because their buff will, it'll only do 2 and 2. Hilbert's in this together does 3. Even at base, it does 3. So basically the way it works is the less health that Duat has, or Samurott, I have a very specific reason I'm not evolving mine into Samurott. But the less health that Hilbert has, the higher that it increases the attack. But even at full health, this does 3. So 2 uses of this will maximize the entire team's attack stat. Really good, and it's really good for Guzma to maximize that first impression. And then Phoebe has the AoE... no, that's my red team. Has the AoE Dire Hit All Plus. So this raises the crit of everyone on the team by 2. So 2 uses of this also maximizes crit. So between Hilbert and Phoebe, you have maxed out attack and crit for the entire party. And then Phoebe also has the advantage of recovering some sync gauge, which is nice. So in single player, I think this is where Guzma shines. Like that team build is where he shines. So let's talk about his sync grid a little bit and where you take him. So the issue that I have with Guzma is that he's pretty clearly built around getting dupes of him, but he's a 1% rate banner character, which sucks. I still think he's good with no dupes, but he's one of the first gacha sync grids that, like, without it, I think there's a huge difference in his usefulness. I don't know about usefulness, because that makes it sound like he's not good. He's super good, regardless. But getting him to that 3, and it's 3 out of 5, which sucks. Getting him to that 3, he's just crazy. So let's talk about his free skills first. He's got this one right here, which is Burst In, which ensures the user's next attack will be a critical hit when the Pokemon enters battle. So this means that if you have this skill, which is obviously the one I'm going for right now, it means that First Impression will always crit. Guaranteed crit no matter what. So that's awesome. So you can actually, if you have this skill, run somebody else instead of Phoebe. I run Phoebe just because she has both buffs that you want and gauge recovery. But you could run someone like Leaf, who has a potion instead. Or you could run just your generic Mew tank, you know, just because Mew's really good at everything. Or you could run, what's his name? Rotom in that slot too. In fact, I might even say you should run Rotom in that slot instead of Phoebe. It's up to you. His other free skill is Vigilance. He's protected against critical hits. Not that big of a deal. You're probably not going to have him being the Pokemon that's taking damage. It is nice, I guess, when he is like the last one standing, if you make him invincible, like immune to crits, and he's got that evasive buff on him, because he has that self-evasion increase. He could be like a last man standing kind of thing, but I don't think you really need to go there. He's got an MP refresh on Beat Him Down, which gives him a chance to recover that. I don't really think that's necessary, because you'll never be in a situation where it's not maxed out unless you're outside of like the Battle Villa, but the Battle Villa is pretty much solved at this point with Red, Mew, and Pikachu. So he's also got a move gauge refresh, on Pin Missile. So basically you get a move gauge back if it's successful when you use Pin Missile, and I think Pin Missile is only 2. So this basically makes Pin Missile completely spammable. I still probably wouldn't mess with it, but it's there. And then he's got the MP refresh on his Dire Hit for the same reason that it's not that good on Beat Him Down. I don't think it's that good on this either. He gets a little bit of Pin Missile power. He only gets 1. Even if he gets every Pin Missile power, it just goes up to 20. 20 power. First Impression can go up to, what is that, 20? So 220. But here's the skill that really sucks that you don't have it, is Catastrophe. So this is a... Oh, actually, it's level 2 for Catastrophe. Oh, no, it's not Catastrophe. That's Sync move. This one. No Quarter. This is the one. So it's got to be Sync level 3 or higher, which sucks. But what it does is it maximizes the number of times multi-strike moves hit when the user's multi-strike move is successful. So what that means is if you use Pin Missile and Pin Missile connects, it's not avoided, it will hit all 5 times. Now, Golisopod is really strong. Like, Guzma does a lot of damage. So if you're using a super effective max attack, max crit Pin Missile, so it's always critting, it does about 500 damage a hit, a little bit less on a super effective hit. So that's 2,500 damage. Like, that's Red level. That's hitting harder than Red's Heat Wave on, like, you know, enemies. Now, Red is obviously better than Guzma, but I'm just saying that Guzma's potential is through the roof, damage-wise. He's got a few power-ups to your boy's X-Scissor. He's got, what's it, 25, 25, 75, 100. So he can power up his Sync move by 100 points, which is a lot. It's a lot. I don't even know if anybody else has 100 buffs on that. I think Red only gets like 50. But also good. The main thing, like this just changes his viability level so much. And I say viability level, that's stupid to say, because he's never unviable. He's always top tier. But this just makes a big difference, you know? Like, it turns him from a really strong Pokemon to just an absolute death machine. I still think he's really good, obviously, as I've said many, many times. I think he's really good. It's a shame that he doesn't have more abilities. So he's got On the Run too, which in a pinch, so when his health gets low enough, it raises his evasiveness sharply, so that's +2. And you can combine that with, where'd he go? There he is. With this Danger Dodge. So it goes up to +4 evasion, but I find that evasion is not that useful unless you have like Mew. Because Mew basically can max it out at +6, and then he starts like dodging consistently and a lot. But Golisopod's kind of fragile, so like when Mew doesn't dodge, it's not that big of a deal because Mew can just eat it. Golisopod can't really eat it, you know, like Mew can. So it's counting on evading. So I don't think that's a way that you want to invest your energy and your time. But let's go ahead and do a match with him. We'll just fight like a super tech course Phoebe. It's fine. Let's put Rotom in instead of Phoebe. The only downside to Rotom is that he doesn't have move gauge recovery, but it also doesn't even really matter that he doesn't have move gauge recovery, because Golisopod's primary attacking skill is Pin Missile, which is, it's not even 3 gauges. So it's pretty spammable. It's not like 100% spammable, but it's pretty spammable. It becomes 100% spammable if you put that extra skill into it. And it's a sync orb chance, so let's use Breathtaking on him. Oh, we got Breathtaking back. Look at that. So as you can see, we've already got the attack maxed out. So let's go ahead and drop First Impression. Bap, 1500 damage. Now we'll go right into the sync move. Deploys X Scissor. Bap, 1200 damage. So you see, it does more than First Impression crit though. But because you're gonna have that always crit ability on, you're always going to have it. Now, see, this is where it starts to fall apart. Is he does not have the ability to guarantee that that pin missile is going to hit all 5 times. So if it hits all 5 times for a 2-gauge move, that's doing a lot of damage. But because it's not hitting all 5 times, it's just not doing as much. So that's on a non-super effective hit with crits. It's doing what? A little under 200. So 180 times 5 versus 180 times 2. Obviously, that's a big difference. That's why I think that the guaranteed 5 is really what changes the game for him. But like as you can see, easily popped all of that. And you can, if you don't want to run Rotom there, you can run Phoebe instead. Because what Phoebe does for you is it lets you not have to use his own Dire Hit after you use First Impression. But First Impression is just so easy to maximize. You know, it seems silly not to use it. You can also run Eevee right there, I guess, and heal, so you like have more longevity, because Rotom is kind of fragile. Not like fragile, but it's not a tank per se. It doesn't really make a difference. And then let's talk a little bit about, I'm not going to go through a match with him because that's going to be really long. But let's talk about co-op. There's actually a funny trick you can do in co-op. Let's just make teams. I don't want, let's just team build, edit team. Co-op. So, as you can see, I have not played co-op since Mewtwo. But there's a funny thing you can do with him, where you lead with Guzma, right? I'll finish the team, and you guys can see. I'll see if you guys can guess where I'm going with this.
Come on.
So, you lead with Guzma. You use First Impression. You switch out to Leaf. Now you use Let's Go twice with Leaf. Okay. Increase the move gauge of all allied sync pairs by 2, and sharply raises Leaf's attack stat. So, then you can switch in Golspot again with Benefactor. Transfers the sync pair stat increases to the sync pair that will switch in when it switches out. So you get the +4 attack, switch Golspot back in, use First Impression again, the second time. Then you switch Guzma back out for Dusknoir. Use Dire Hit All, and, well, you don't even need to use Dire Hit All because you're going to have the skill that makes First Impression a critical hit. But you make sure that you get as much attack as you can out of Unbreakable Bonds. You might have to use Double Edge a little bit first because Unbreakable Bonds is not as good as All In This Together on Hilbert, not even close. But you try to get as much attack on him as you can. You bring him back in a third time to use the third First Impression, because the First Impression has 3 uses. So that's just a silly way you can get all 3 uses of First Impression out of Guzma, which I think is fun to do. Because co-op has gotten easier, and I say that in a good way, because co-op was really annoying in the past, where like you basically had to have the right combination for that fight, or you should lose. Whereas now it's not really like that, so you can kind of experiment and have fun. And that's a combination that I have a lot of fun using. It's just being able to First Impression with Guzma so much. Guzma's obviously a cool character. In a game where you have a lot of trainers who are like nothing, you know, they're like non-characters. Like Brendan, like I like Brendan, but they're basically applying a character to him that didn't exist in the games, and his character is, I really like Pokemon! And it's the same with like Hilbert. Pokemon battling is awesome! Like, you know, great, thank you. You guys didn't have a character, so the character they've applied to you is enthusiastic about Pokemon Child. Like, that's your entire character. So it's cool to have someone like Guzma that has a big personality. You know, like Blue. It's the same reason I love Blue, is that Blue has a big personality, and he brings it to a game where a lot of characters are lacking in that personality. So that's why I like Guzma. Anyway, that's a quick overview of Guzma. I think he's fun to use. I think he's really good. It's also nice that this slot is pretty much free. Like, I think Hilbert is a must for Guzma. Not a must, like you can't play at all if you don't have him. but I think he's like a quote-unquote BFF for Guzma. But this slot is so flexible. I mean, you can run this one if you want, just to raise and heal a little bit. Blissey, that's the name, sorry. You can run Phoebe. You can run Holiday Elisa for that sync gauge boost. I don't think you really need to do that, but you can. You can run another attacker. Like, it's not necessarily bad to just throw another attacker in that slot, so just in case Guzman goes down. You can run Leaf, who can heal up and also move gauge recover. You can run Mew, who's just the generic tank, and can also get a little bit more speed. So Hilbert can give 4 speed to everybody, but Mew can max out his own. So that way you can get as much speed as possible so that you don't really need sync gauge recovery. Plumeria is not a terrible choice. Plumeria is kind of unique in that she's basically like an off DPS, where like she's not going to be your main one, but because she has that move gauge boost, she kind of mixes DPS and support. Rosa, I mean, you can run Torchic, it doesn't matter. You can run anybody in that last slot pretty much, just because Guzma with Hilbert basically fits everything he needs to do, because what matters is getting that critical hit on first impression. And then he can just max his own crit afterward with Dire Hit Plus, so it's basically just whatever you want. I like Rotom because I think sync moving faster is the best thing in the game right now. But it's up to you really what you want to do. Guzma is just that well-rounded. Is he worth pulling on is another question. I would say probably not. Just because of that 1% rate, I would rather just stumble into him in a Poke Fair in the future. But he's good, and if you like him, pull for him like I pulled for him. Do as I say, not as I do when it comes to pulling, because you'll notice that I will tell you to stay away from a banner, and then I will not take my own advice. That's not me trying to mislead you, that's just me being a weak individual. So, anyway, that's your boy, Guzma. There he is. What are his poses? Let's look at his poses. That's a good one. That's a good one, too. That's a good one. I like that one. He's pretty pissed off. This is a good one, too. I'm going to stick with this one. It's your boy, Guzma. All right, everybody. See you later.